What's up, everybody? Welcome back into another episode of The Lawyer You Know. It's Lindsay Clancy's trial, day 8. And today was one of the most mind-boggling days I've ever seen from a prosecution team as they presented witness after witness who said what a great mom and a great person Lindsay Clancy was, who shared her feelings and her struggles with them. What were they doing? Why did they present these witnesses? What do they want the jury to pick up from what these witnesses said? How can this possibly help their case? Because to me, most of it felt and sounded like a sentencing hearing where the defense would put on character witnesses to talk about what a good person the defendant is and why the judge should have mercy and go lighter on the defendant's sentence. We're going to go through some of that testimony today, and we're going to talk about some of the very important arguments that were made at the end of the day and what I am pretty confident is going to happen with the witnesses the defense wants to call, but at this point, the judge is not necessarily allowing them to. So I'll talk a little bit about that as well as answer all of your questions. So without further ado, let's get to it. So we started off the day with a medical examiner. And there are a couple witnesses today that were not Lindsay Clancy's friends necessarily, but the prosecution called for different reasons. And even those witnesses, I'm thinking to myself, what is the prosecution trying to get out of this witness, right? That's always kind of my thought when a witness is on the stand. And for the medical examiner, where they showed pictures of baby Callan, and they had to take a break afterwards because Lindsay Clancy was bawling, the judge had to give an instruction about basically not allowing sympathy or the horrible feelings you feel when you see the pictures of the little baby and the injuries to him is, to me, the only way the prosecutors win this case. I have felt that way for a long time, and today just solidified it even more. The way they win this case is if they cannot possibly think about giving Lindsay Clancy anything other than life in prison because she did this evil act to her beautiful, innocent children. And I get that. And I get why jurors would feel that way. And I've talked to so many people in my life for following this trial, like friends and family members, and talking through it. And it's such a struggle to think about anything else. So I have a question that I'm going to ask at the end of the video today. And I think 90+% of people in this chat at that point are going to say yes if I offered it as a result of this trial. I think it would be the best result that is, I'll talk about whether or not it's a possible result, but it would be the best result that I think everybody could get behind. Not everybody, but the vast majority of people could get behind. And we'll talk about that at the end of the video after I kind of go through what else the prosecution did today after the medical examiner. Because the next witness they brought up was the pediatrician for the children. And the one good thing the prosecutors brought out is Lindsay never told her or complained to her about Callan not taking a bottle or having trouble with a bottle. She looks for postpartum depression, didn't necessarily see any concerns with Lindsay Clancy, and no concerns when she saw the children, even up to January of 2023 when she did Cora's checkup. Cora and Lindsay seemed fine and normal, and she didn't see any signs. And that is kind of a common theme throughout the video today, is what signs could anyone have seen? What signs should they have seen? But the most important question that the experts are going to have to answer for us is, what should they have seen? What do you think it was possible for them to see if somebody is having the issues Lindsay Clancy does, if somebody is going to have a psychotic break, if someone has an irresistible impulse, voices in their head, if medication is causing them to literally lose their mind and have a broken mind or brain, like Lindsay Clancy said about herself? Because so many people did not see it. And then on cross, also something very common that came out of a lot of witnesses today was that everybody seemed fine. Lindsay seemed like a great mom. She cared about her kids. She does say she's not an expert in postpartum depression, but they do talk about how Lindsay really never complained much. She wasn't a big complainer. That was another big one. But let's listen to a little bit of the back and forth about whether or not Lindsay complained about the kids, because this is another misstep by the prosecution in that they'll put these little nuggets out there or these little breadcrumbs to things that they absolutely want the jury to think and feel, but they don't outright say it so that they can come out and deny it or act like they're not arguing it later, which we absolutely hear at the end of the day today. So we're going to get into some of it that the defense highlights and drives a truck through just how wrong they are. So jury, don't be confused because the prosecution's kind of making you think these things. Those things are not true. And we're going to get to some of them here.
That's fine. That's fine. Thank you.
Yeah.
Was Lindsay the type of person, to your observation and your treatment of her, that she was kind of like, was she like a complainer? Would she complain to you about the kids being a pain in the neck and that she was aggravated with the children or anything like that?
Not that I remember, no.
In all of the times that you had seen her, let's focus, say, on the year of 2022 up through 2023, January 24th, when you saw the children, I'm sorry, Cora, I believe it was, last. Counsel had asked you whether or not you made any observations that you would have noted if she appeared to be suffering from any symptomology of postpartum. Do you recall her asking you that?
Yes.
And in your treatment of the children and in your observations of Lindsay, did you know, or did she indicate to you, or did Patrick indicate to you, or anybody indicate to you, that in October of 2022, she was seeing a psychiatrist?
No.
Do you know Dr. Tufts?
No.
Did you know that after seeing Dr. Tufts that she was placed on a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, SSRI, Zoloft?
No, I didn't know that.
And again, this is, you're the pediatrician, it's not your job to pry. I mean, if you see something, you would make note of it and try to help them out. But I mean, if they don't tell you, you don't know, right? Did you know?
And I thought that was a good point to bring up. She didn't know about, Lindsay Clancy was not hiding her mental health issues from the world, right? But also not something she's going to talk to her pediatrician about. Now, I do think there are maybe some people that think, oh, you should because it's dealing with the kids. Other people that would think you have your own doctors to share that with. And from my perspective, I can listen to arguments from both sides. I tend to think, like if I was going to take my kids to the doctor, which I did some, but you know, my wife did that the majority of the time for our kids, and you tell them how they're doing this, how they're doing that. They're focused on the kids, right? Especially if Cora's having tummy issues and we're trying to deal with that, or this baby's not sleeping, or whatever it may be. Like you're pretty focused on the kids, I would think. Sometimes maybe you would bring that up, sometimes not. But that was, I think, something that was an interesting point that the defense pointed out, that was not as big as it may have seemed when the prosecutor was asking questions. Additionally, he ended with, she was a good mom, wasn't she? And the pediatrician agreed. Then we get to all the learning sprouts teachers, how amazing the kids are, how cute they are, how fun they are, how sometimes they would have harder drop-off times, how Patrick maybe dropped off the kids more than Lindsay. What's the prosecutor trying to say there? Lindsay's a bad mom. Patrick had to take him to school. She didn't even care enough to take him to school. I'm not saying that they're saying that, but I feel like they leave some of that out there for people to talk about. No outside, no out of the norm reactions from Lindsay. They didn't think she was acting weird. They didn't think she was acting, crazy with postpartum depression. She wasn't acting psychotic to the preschool teachers. Okay, what does that prove? I don't really know. Then we get into her friends. And here's some of the things I wrote down about her friends. First, labor and delivery nurse. Second, marriage and family therapist. Third, licensed behavioral therapist. Each time when they brought up these witnesses, I thought to myself, oh, is this going to be the labor and delivery nurse when her kids were born? Oh, is this going to be a marriage and family therapist that they went to? Oh, is this a behavioral therapist that they used? And the answer every time was no. These are Lindsay Clancy's friends. So if I was to tell you that, and we know some of what the prosecution has already put out there, right? Did she fake this? Was she manipulating people to get what she wanted? Well, she herself, Lindsay Clancy, is a labor and delivery nurse, I believe. I know she is a nurse. I think labor and delivery. Her friends are labor and delivery nurses. Her friends are therapists. Her friends have struggled with mental health issues and have taken medication before. She's discussed the medication with her friends. Is this all how she set up her manipulation and her fake postpartum depression? Look at all the resources she had. And as I thought about that, I thought, okay, if that's what they're going for, maybe, but that doesn't really explain why you would check yourself into a hospital like that. It doesn't explain why you would tell certain people certain things. It doesn't explain why you would actually take the medication. It doesn't explain why you would do that to yourself, to the kids. Like, from my perspective, it doesn't explain a lot. And so if I'm thinking about that in a vacuum as kind of an umbrella, I'm trying to think, okay, is that what they're trying to put forward? But then you actually listen to the testimony. And instead, it says something very, very different from that. Very different from that. And we're going to listen to a big chunk of the first witness's testimony because I think a lot of it was repeated with the other witnesses. We're going to listen to just like a little bit of some of the other ones. But I thought this big chunk of the conversation on direct and cross was representative of so much of the evidence that came out today that boggled my mind with what was the Commonwealth doing. Margaret said, the prosecution's theory seems to be we have a hammer so everything looks like a nail. And if it's not a nail, we're going to hit it anyways. Can we please discuss how the Commonwealth said fake S isn't a theory? Even the judge was blown away. Okay, I'm going to hold this comment till the end of the video. I have to be honest. I started as in this woman is guilty and a horrible person, and as evidence is coming out, I'm in the insanity camp now. A lot of people in my life feel the same way. I also have had some people in my life saying, I don't really care, she needs to go away forever, which hold that thought for when we get to the end of the video as well. The Commonwealth lost me this afternoon in the hearing, arguing they have an implied fake S. So, okay, I'm going to save all those for the end. The prosecutors were caught on tape. I have the clip whispering, shut her up, as she was taken out of the courtroom, SMH. So somebody else sent me this. I didn't hear it myself, so I don't want to comment on it too much. But if they did say that, obviously that's horrific. But something I'm going to point out when Patrick's dad testified that would be right in line with this. I think the Commonwealth is changing tune and will now argue she couldn't take it anymore, planned to take the kids with her, and the great day proves it. Defense must show PPP to drove that belief. So the defense does not have to prove that, but the Commonwealth does have to prove that she was not either had a mental disease or defect or could have conformed her actions to the law, knew they were wrong, knew they were illegal. I really think the Commonwealth is going to argue her injuries are hesitation wounds and an individual in psychosis would have used more violent, lethal means because they have no regard for self-preservation. I do agree with that. I do think that that is going to be one of the themes of the Commonwealth's arguments in the case. Who demand guilty for justice, forget reckless doctors, drug companies, and a broken mental health system that LC could have also been a victim of. I don't know if they forgot about that, but I think everybody's going to analyze this one through their own lens of experience and thoughts and beliefs. I just had my daughter a year ago, and the pediatrician does give you a questionnaire to complete about your postpartum. When I had my first daughter, my pediatrician told me to see a therapist for my postpartum anxiety. And that was one of the things a lot of these people say as well, is like, if they have issues, we like to give them resources. So I appreciate this perspective, and I do think those things happen. Maybe not every pediatrician, maybe there are some good ones and some bad ones like anything else, but I do generally agree with that. But I wonder, how often that's a topic of conversation if you're focused on the kids. And again, I think that's probably different for every interaction. Okay, let's get to the testimony now of the first friend who was the nurse.
For a concern, we do screen patients for postpartum depression.
And is that all the nurses that work for the Mass General Hospital labor and delivery unit are able to do those great screenings for postpartum depression?
Yes, we ask patients questions about if they're suffering from depression or anxiety, and if they have any feelings of wanting to harm themselves or anyone else. That's a standard admission question.
And if these patients respond that, yes, they are having issues with depression, anxiety, or wanting to harm themselves or others, what do you do with those patients? Do you refer them somewhere, or do you give them materials? What do you do?
Well, we would talk more about their symptoms with them, and then the first step would probably to be alert the provider who's caring for them, either the doctor or the nurse midwife in our setting, and get social work involved.
Now, while you were working at Mass General Hospital, did you work with Lindsay Clancy?
Yes, I did.
How long did you work with her?
The whole time she worked on our unit, which I believe was 7 years.
And so when you say our unit, she also worked in labor and delivery with you, is that correct?
Yes.
And in addition to seeing her at work, would you also socialize with her occasionally outside of work?
Occasionally, yes.
Directing your attention to after Ms. Clancy gave birth to Callan, which May of 2022, so after May of 2022, did you reach out to her, talk to her in any way?
Yes, I saw Lindsay twice from when Callan was born until January. I saw her in June and in November, and we would send each other text messages.
When you saw her in June, where was that?
That was at her home. I brought some lunch for her and visited with her and the baby, and Patrick and Dawson were home.
And how was Lindsay's demeanor during that visit?
Very good.
Was she her typical self?
Yes.
And how long was that visit for, approximately?
Maybe 2 hours or something like that.
And
So again, this is a common theme throughout. Lindsay was fine. There's nothing wrong with her. She's perfectly fine. Her demeanor was fine. Nothing changed throughout the time that I hung out with her. I see some people talking about Lori Vallow and comparing that to Lindsay Clancy. Interesting, because my wife asked me the same thing literally today. And to me, that's a perfect example that if I was a defense attorney, I would love to be able to compare and contrast Lori Vallow with Lindsay Clancy. Lori Vallow had a clear motive to get certain people out of the way. And we got to remember, it wasn't just her kids. Certain people out of the way. And what happened to all those people? They died. Additionally, Lori Vallow, still to this day, does not admit to taking the lives of her children. So she did not admit the facts and argue insanity. She never claimed to be insane. She never claimed to have mental health issues and take medication or have a mental disease or defect or not know what she was doing. She said she didn't do it, regardless of all the overwhelming evidence. And all of those people, after they got out of the way, what did Lori Vallow do? She went to Hawaii with her new husband. What did Lindsay Clancy do? Jumped out of a second-story window. So very, very different cases, in my opinion, and why the insanity defense is usually not successful. Like, I think somebody like Lori Vallow, even with the cultish stuff, I still don't think she wins. So that's why it's a very good kind of case-by-case basis thing. I told my best friend a lot, but there are certain things that I might find embarrassing that I do not wish to share. And I think this is a good point in that she did share some of the maybe even vagaries, like I have negative thoughts or bad thoughts, or I'm really struggling, or I can't sleep, or they could see she's losing weight, but she's not necessarily going to tell them the worst of the worst. Maybe some friends and not others. She's told her husband and her mom, which to a lot of women, I don't want to, overgeneralize, but to a lot of women, I think that's who they would tell. Maybe some have different relationships with friends, obviously. I understand the Commonwealth has the right to put on the case they want, but to what point are they putting some of these witnesses on for to win via feels? So there are going to be some witnesses later that I completely agree with you, and I think were completely unnecessary and heartless, and even the way they treated those witnesses on the stand, to me, was not great. Not great. Okay, let's keep listening.
You said the next time you saw her was in November of 2022, is that correct?
Correct.
And where was that?
It was at a restaurant in Hingham. We met for lunch.
And when you met with her for lunch in November of 2022, did Ms. Clancy talk to you about some issues she was having with sleep and anxiety?
Yes, she did.
What did she tell you about that?
During the lunch specifically, I don't remember her exact symptoms. Our conversation surrounded her upcoming return to work, and Lindsay was feeling that she wasn't in a mental state ready to go and take care of patients. She talked about insomnia and some not feeling herself. I believe she might have used the words like brain fog or something like that.
And while you were having lunch with her and having this discussion, did you ever have any trouble?
So correct me if I'm wrong. So Rihanna said, yikes, PETA, she didn't mention wanting to harm the kids or hearing voices until after she spoke with her attorney. So the hearing voices part, we will see. Her lawyer says she did. The Commonwealth says she didn't. Well, we'll put that to the side because I don't think that's been litigated yet. But I thought Patrick Clancy said, and the reports have all been that she did say to her mom and to Patrick that she had thoughts of hurting herself and the kids. That's my memory. If I'm wrong, we can correct it in the chat.
Understanding what she was saying?
No,
Did she ever appear to have difficulty understanding what you were saying in response?
no,
Was there anything different about her speech pattern?
not that I recall.
When you were discussing these issues with Lindsay about having some insomnia and being concerned about going back to work, did you give her any advice or do anything to help?
Yes, it was myself and 2 other nurses that we work with who Lindsay was friends with outside of work, and we were all encouraging her to get the help and support that she needed with medication if needed and therapists. And
So the friends got together, talked to Lindsay, tried to get her the help she needed, medication, therapists, concerned friends, nice friends, good friends, friends that Lindsay Clancy was clear with that she had some issues she needed help with. Like a very clear history of a mental disease or defect, in my opinion. California prosecutor here. Agree the Commonwealth is losing the plot, but this is still clearly M to me. Wanted to get your thoughts on why this is different than Lori Vallow. Oh, okay, good. I didn't realize we had multiple comments on why this is different than Lori Vallow. So, I mean, as a prosecutor, you know that for an insanity defense, they have to admit the actual acts. Lori Vallow never admitted the acts. So we can start there. Number 2, she never said that she had any hallucinations, irresistible impulses, not understanding right from wrong. What did Lori Vallow do with the kids? Chopped them up and hid them in her backyard or Chad Daybell's backyard. What did she do after the fact? Fled to Hawaii, lied about where the kids were, said these kids are here, these kids are there, these kids are over here, these kids are over there. What did Lindsay Clancy do? When asked where the kids were, she said in the basement. She didn't send her husband on a wild goose chase. Now, I think there are still arguments, by the way. You're turning me into, I feel like I'm arguing a side of the case, but I do understand the thought that sending him away, planning to do it that way, putting them in the basement, giving her time to go and take her own life, which she did because she knew what she just did was wrong. Like she took her own life because she knew what she just did was wrong. That's what I would focus on if I was the prosecutor here. But I think it's night and day from Lori Vallow personally. My social has blown up with these wild theories on Patrick Clancy doing it and framing her. I do not believe this, but want to know your thoughts. I have seen some of this too. And to me, it's kind of like, I was talking with a buddy recently about some other cases that have conspiracy theories, and it always comes back to show me the evidence of it. And if it was really Patrick and not Lindsay, I think maybe the defense would want to make those arguments, right? I think the prosecutor might want to know that too. I've seen the video that people say there's 2 shoes. Impossible for me to tell for sure on grainy videos from surveillance. But from my perspective, I do not see any evidence at all that Patrick did this. Now, if you want to say he shouldn't have left her alone with the kids, if you want to say he should have been nicer, he should have been around more, he didn't do enough, I don't know, right? I don't know. It's on a spectrum. I think he probably feels incredibly guilty and horrible for what happened. I think her parents do. I think his parents do. I think her friends probably do. I think everybody in this situation wishes they would have done more. I had a friend who took his own life, and was it my fault? No way. But I'm not going to lie to you and say, gosh, I wonder if I would have done X, Y, and Z, if that would have changed it. And if I would have reached out more, if I would have talked to him more, if I would have hung out with him more, even when our lives went so different ways than when we were like literally best friends in high school. It was an overdose, not taking his own life, but at the same time, his own decisions that were going down a bad path. And I knew it, and I talked about it a bunch, but could I have done more, right? Like, I think people feel that way. I'm sure Patrick Clancy feels that way. I just see no evidence of it, so I don't really want to give it oxygen personally. I think if you want to have conspiracy theories and, blame it on the husband in a case like this, I think, there are ways to do that you're seeing people do. It's just not something that I see a shred of evidence for personally that doesn't start with, well, he went skiing after he dropped to the hospital. Would I do that? I don't think so. Does that mean he killed his kids? No, like you're making that leap. Like, even if he was cheating on his wife, like that to me is not evidence that he killed his kids. And frankly, we're going to get evidence today that she and Patrick were great. They got along great. She spoke highly of him. There was evidence of that today, which again points to the opposite of what some of these conspiracy theories online say or need to be true. No videos of that day from the cameras. Why not? I have no idea, right? I don't know that answer. I think it's an interesting question though. In my humble opinion, the Commonwealth is misrepresenting the state's own theory to limit the defense expert testimony. Fake S-attempt is unethical. They know better. Ooh, okay. Sawyer, may I like that? And we're going to get to that again, like I said, when we get to the video, to that hearing where they argue about this.
Giving her any ideas we could think of in our personal and professional lives that may help her.
Okay. And did Lindsay tell you that she was looking to find some type of medication that would help her sleep and help her with her anxiety?
Yes, I believe we talked about medication, and she was going to be meeting with a new therapist shortly.
And during this conversation or after it happened, did you ever have any concerns about her harming herself?
No.
Did you ever have any concerns about her harming the children?
No.
Did you?
And so I guess they're trying to say that's evidence that she was fine. And because nobody thought that she would harm herself or the children, because nobody thought a psychotic break was coming, therefore she was fine and intended to do this and manipulated everybody around her. I think that's probably where they're going.
Give her some names of obstetrics or social workers.
I did. After our lunch, I recall that I reached out to another friend of mine who had a pregnancy loss that was challenging for her and had met with obstetrical specific social workers and support groups. And I asked that woman, could you share those names? And I sent them to Lindsay.
Okay. Did you have some text messages between yourself and Lindsay around Thanksgiving of 2022 in which she told you about a program she was going to try?
We did have text messages around Thanksgiving. I believe the program you're referring to was something that her mother-in-law had told her about at South Shore Hospital that was more specific to perinatal issues rather than a general social worker, someone who specialized in this area.
What does perinatal mean?
During pregnancy, birth, and after birth.
So this was a program more focused on women either during their pregnancy, while birth, during birth, or right after birth, as far as you know?
I mean, as far as I understood it, I just understood it to mean someone who was familiar more with postpartum depression or anxiety, was my understanding.
Okay. And did you also leave some text messages from Lindsay Clancy right after New Year's on January 2nd, 2023?
Yes, I did.
And can you tell us what that exchange was?
Again, that was with myself and Lindsay and the two other nurses who she had confided in, and we asked her how her holidays were and could we get together again in the new year. And she said, I can't get together right now because I'm involved in an intensive program, but hope.
What great friends, right? Like, and again, being a great friend and doing what you can is this. People can say, "Oh, this isn't true." I'm sure they're trying to make it sound better afterwards. But like, seems like great friends, and they did what they could do to try and keep her accountable and help her through this, and not make her feel bad about this or alone dealing with this. And bad things can still happen. You can't control everything.
Hopefully soon.
Okay. And did she wish you a Happy New Year?
She may have. I do not recall.
And did she tell you that she was, in fact, at that time at McLean Hospital, or did she just leave it more vague that it was just an intense program?
I believe it was an intense program. I did not know the name of the facility at that time.
Did you at that time know that she was currently at a hospital?
I don't recall what I knew then versus what I know now.
Did you also speak with Lindsay on January 23rd, 2023?
I did not speak to Lindsay. I sent her a text message on January 23rd.
And what did you say in your text message?
I'm paraphrasing, but I believe I said, "Hi, I've been thinking of you, wondering if you're still in the daily program," I believe I said. So maybe I didn't realize it was inpatient. And she responded.
And what was her response?
Again, I'm paraphrasing, but she said something like, "I'm no longer in the program. I'm continuing to work with my psychiatrists to find the right medication that will allow me to sleep at night but still function during the day."
By the way, if anybody's wondering, how can she possibly remember these text messages from 3 years ago? Doctors shouldn't have to memorize their charts, right? Well, if you go and review the documentation of what you did and what you're going to testify about, you can have pretty good recall, especially if you're smart, like a nurse or a doctor. And she's doing a really good job of recalling and paraphrasing what the topics of their conversations are that are important to the issues in this trial.
I've had a lot of bad or negative side effects from the medication, so I've had to come off of them and go on new ones, and it's been very difficult. Okay. Or has taken a long time or something like that.
Okay. And after those text messages that were exchanged on the 23rd, did you have any concerns that she was going to harm herself?
No.
The tone of the text messages, were they more positive and hopeful that things were going to work out on the right medications?
I don't know that they were more positive than previous times. I believe that Lindsay was always hopeful that she would get the care that she was seeking, so I don't know that the tone was different that day.
She was always hopeful that she would get the care that she was seeking.
But it wasn't a negative tone, it was that same kind of hopeful tone?
Yes, as far as I remember.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Be ready.
All right, so that was the end of direct. I'm going to answer a few questions, and then we will get to cross. Peter, did you hear the Massachusetts? Okay, I'm going to hold that one. So many about the end of the day. Both sides are saying the jury, she was totally normal to everyone, great mom, etc. Commonwealth is saying she could not have flipped that fast, so quick on the flip. Big Red, aka the defense, is saying only logical reason is she was insane. I think this is a good summary of it. Which side are you guys more likely to fall on? Even if she was psychotic and unaware of her actions because of the med's mental health, how can we be sure this won't happen again in the future? Just trust the mental health process. We saw how that went here. And this is going right into what my question at the end of the day, or what I think the best solution that may or may not be possible under the law is in this case, because I have the same concerns, Kevin. I have the same concerns. She tried to get help before she killed the kids and tried hurting herself. Most insanity defense only start after they commit the crime. Yeah, there's tons of examples. The insanity defense, the vast majority of the time, is unsuccessful and obviously unsuccessful throughout. This is not one of those. That's why it makes it a really interesting and challenging discussion and thought process for all of us, because we're looking it in the eye and like, how do we feel about this? Even somebody we feel bad for maybe got screwed by the system. Do we still feel okay saying not guilty if we think that in fact she meets the legal definition? With all the normal quote unquote behavior testimony pushed by the Commonwealth, can we assume the Commonwealth is laying the foundation for experts to testify that people with PPP always show signs? And then the defense on cross is like, just because she wasn't drooling or whatever, people with postpartum psychosis, they can talk, they can listen, they can understand, they can work out, right? So they're both setting the stage for, I think, what their experts are going to testify to. Late to the live, going back to the beginning, personally, I currently could not convict her. The Commonwealth has not proven their case beyond a reasonable doubt to me. Well, they're not done yet. So keep your mind open, right? They still have time to prove it. It would help if we knew Patrick and his new bride were fully investigated and not in a Michael Proctor type of way. Surely they didn't just take the 911 call as a statement of fact. I don't have a lot of faith in Massachusetts PD. I get that, but I mean, that's another reason why they actually tested the exercise bans. And I mean, I think we're going to get more inside the head, maybe from past experience. I think when the experts testify, if they have interviewed Lindsay Clancy, she may give more information and details about exactly what she did. That might put some of this to rest, but we'll see. Let's wait and see how the trial goes. Could they not have come to some kind of plea agreement? So yes and no. She's not going to plead to anything because she's saying she is not legally responsible because of the insanity defense. But what they could have done is, if the state's experts agreed with the defense experts, they could have come to an agreement that she committed the crime, but she's not guilty by reason of insanity and could be committed to the mental health facility, the treatment facility, and then start that process as if a jury said not guilty by reason of insanity. There are cases where all the experts agree and the prosecutor, ends up saying, okay, this is what we have to do. So it's not technically a plea agreement, but it could have been that. And then if evaluators evaluate her and said she's fine, and a judge looks at it and they're like, okay, I trust the mental health facility that says she's good, and then she could be released at some point in the future. All right, let's listen to Cross now.
Morning.
Good morning.
So even during the, let's say, the difficult times that she had, she was always trying to be hopeful and always tried to have a positive outlook on her health.
That was my impression, yes.
And you obviously are a good friend.
Yes, I believe so.
And you've known her for what, 7 years? Or not, 9 years now, right?
Yes, I believe since 2015, if that's when she began working at Mass General.
Right. So she was like a 24-year-old kid when she first started there, right?
Yes.
And you basically knew her right out of nursing school, all the way up through,
Yes.
till she finally had the baby, the last baby, right? Can you tell us, what was her work ethic? Was she a good nurse? Was she a caring nurse? Tell us what your observations were. Granted that you're a friend and you might be biased, but tell us what you thought.
Yes. Lindsay loved being a nurse and was excellent at it. It was a second degree for her to go to nursing school, and you could tell with Lindsay it was more of a calling that she really cared so deeply, specifically about caring for pregnant women and women giving birth.
So what does this tell us? Okay, what is the defense trying to get out of this witness? That Lindsay Clancy, and by the way, he lays this foundation and asks these kinds of questions with multiple witnesses. That's why I'm playing this one as kind of a representative of a lot of the evidence today. Was Lindsay Clancy running from this life she had? Did she really hate that she had to go back to work because she just didn't feel like working anymore? She wanted a nanny and wanted the easy life? That's not what this witness is telling us. She loved being a nurse. It was a calling. She was excellent at it. She wanted to do this. That's important.
Was very attentive to all of her patients' needs. She was very smart, and mostly she was incredibly nurturing and caring.
Thank you. And during the period of time in the fall of 2022 up through Thanksgiving of 22 and then into 23, you obviously, as a good friend, stayed in close contact with her, texting, seeing her, dinner, lunches, right?
Yes.
And then when you and some of the other nurses would go to a lunch, for example, if I understand correctly, on one of the luncheons that you had in the fall of 22, she was telling or sharing with you the fact that she was going through a difficult period.
Yes.
Told you that she was not in a good mental state, that she had a lot of insomnia, and she even described it as brain fog, right?
Yes, I believe so. She definitely used those words in our text messages, as the fall progressed, but I believe she used those words during the lunch. She definitely said that she was in a difficult mental place and didn't think she'd be able to go back to work.
And she told you that she was actually actively treating with medical personnel. Did she say a psychiatrist, psychologist, or just seeing doctors, or what did she say?
Yes, she talked about therapists. She talked about going on medication. At some point in that month of November, she said she had even gone to the emergency department.
Did she tell you that she was having negative side effects with the medication that she had been prescribed by these doctors?
She did. She did not elaborate on the side effects, but she did say that multiple times.
So as close as you were for all those years working together, and you guys worked together through the COVID too, right?
Yes.
Is that a bonding experience for nurses?
Yes.
During that period of time, did you ever observe her? Was she a complainer? Like, would she come and complain to you, or was she pretty much private, but would share her opinions of what was happening inside of her?
She was not a complainer about work or home or anything.
She was not a complainer, which again, maybe that's why she's not telling every single person in the world about every single problem she has, every single, issue she has, just her close friends, kind of some vague, I'm having some mental health struggles, can't sleep, taking medications, need to balance them. So that's, I think, good fact that I think was consistent throughout her friends testifying today. It's wild they called all of her, again, the vague things that each side is trying to get across to the jury, I think the defense is much more pointed and obvious of what they're trying to get. I think the prosecution's hoping some things are picked up by osmosis.
But we were friends, and she did share more personal details with me.
And when she was working, would you guys be working on the night shift, or would you work in the afternoon? Or
The night shift.
Night shift. Mm-hmm. So did you ever see her go on her phone and access cameras to see what was going on at home with the babies or anything like that?
Yes.
Is that something that she would do on a regular basis, staying in touch with the family and looking at the cameras?
Yes.
Did she ever tell you why she was doing that?
Not specifically.
Okay. But she, to your appearance or to your observation, appeared to be very concerned about her kids, right?
Yes.
Did you ever hear her complain that she wanted to leave behind the life that she had and basically move on to something better?
Oh, no. Lindsay.
Where have we heard that before? That's basically the prosecution's theory of her motive. She wanted to move on from this life that she had. She didn't like it anymore. And so what does he do? He asks somebody that's her friend, is that true? And they nuke the state's theory of motive right out of the water. Gone.
Did you ever hear her complain that she wanted to leave behind the life that she had and basically move on to something better?
Oh, no. Lindsay, from the time I met her as a young woman, very much desired to be a mother and have a family.
And she did share with you that her mother-in-law actually referred her to somebody for some help as well, correct?
Yes.
In the holiday period, you guys stayed in touch again. You were texting her, and that's when she was, now we know she was in McLean Hospital, but she told you she was in an intensive program, right?
Correct.
In other words, she didn't say, I can't go to lunch with you guys because I'm in a mental hospital. She basically said, I'm treating my problems.
Correct.
Which seems like a reasonable response. Oh, goodness. I'm trying to find the... Can the DA stipulate offer, concede to not guilty by reason of insanity? Yes, usually it depends on what the experts think, and if their experts agree, then that is something that could have happened. Massachusetts prosecutors are playing fast and loose with the theories of their case these days when their hurdle is literally to a moral certainty. Yeah, I mean, this one, they do seem to have to pivot because it's not going well. I also wonder how much the public perception of this case may be affecting theories and witnesses. I binge Lawyer You Know videos now like they're my online classes. Thanks for the chat, Chris K. Question, if something wasn't mentioned in opening and they used it in the trial, can it be objected to as facts, not evidence? No. You kind of have that flipped, so you're really close. It's in closing. If they argue something that was not brought out at trial, you object to facts, not in evidence. In opening, you're never going to get every fact. It's a roadmap. It can be 5 minutes long. You don't have to say every fact in opening. But Azam, I missed those questions. Feel like we used to get a couple of those doozies every single video. Yes, Azam is in the house. What are your thoughts on her eye movements? I've noticed her eyes flickering a lot when the camera focuses too closely on LC. I have not noticed that. I don't know. I don't know what that would mean. You guys can let me know in the chat what you think. Why didn't the Commonwealth refer to the mental health experts in opening? It's a good question. It's a good question. Night shift is the way to go in the hospital. That being said, gotta bounce. I'm glad I caught a little bit of this. God bless you all, and God bless you, Rebecca. Thanks for coming to hang out. And Charlie, thanks for gifting 5 Lawyer You Know memberships. All right, the next witness is the marriage and family therapist. Not here to talk about her specialty, but she is friends with Lindsay Clancy. The kids hung out. No change in demeanor. She was fine, but she was worried about her because she had trouble sleeping and was losing weight. And Lindsay never mentioned homicidal thoughts or hallucinations. It's like, does that prove that she never had them just because she didn't tell her friend that their kids hang out together about that? She did see her at Cora's birthday party, and I thought this was interesting with the state kind of battling with their own witness. I just want to show a quick clip of this because it was an explanation of how the state's witnesses were not great for them.
Or behaving, that when you saw her, you thought she looked like a zombie?
She seemed tired.
Sorry, let me back it up. I missed it.
She responded that things hadn't gotten any better and that she feels like a zombie.
So Clancy tells her she feels like a zombie. Prosecutors don't like that, right? What does zombie make you think of?
Was there anything about her appearance or the way she was interacting or behaving that when you saw her, you thought she looks like a zombie?
She seemed tired.
But there's a difference between being tired and looking like a zombie, right?
She didn't look like a zombie, no.
is there anything that made you think she looked like a zombie? Well, yeah, she was tired. That's a yes. She didn't say yeah. She said, well, she was tired. That's a yes, because she could have said no. She said, well, she was tired, which means that's what made me think she looked like a zombie. Then she's like, well, not actually like a zombie, right? Like, she didn't have like drool hanging out and she wasn't bleeding and walking around like this and, you know, eating brains or whatever. It's like, yeah, no, I guess she didn't like look like a zombie from the movies. But that's what the Commonwealth was having to do with their own witnesses today, because they chose to put friend after friend and even extended family member, in-law family member of Lindsay Clancy. On cross-examination, he's like, you didn't probe into her issues. Lindsay Clancy loved her kids. Lindsay Clancy was not a complainer. Lindsay Clancy and Pat were great together and they got along great. This witness confirmed all of that. Then we get to another witness that was friends with Lindsay Clancy. It was a licensed behavioral therapist. I believe this was like the lifelong friend of her. They discussed their struggles together. They discussed the medications that, you know, they had each taken and the issues they had with those medications. But this one I want to play because one of the real different things with this witness was she saw Lindsay Clancy, and this is going to be on direct, post the killing of her children when she was in the treatment facility, and she discusses their interaction that the Commonwealth is going to try to prove. See, no remorse. She knew what she did. She's happy her kids are gone. Like, what are they trying to argue with this interaction?
Remember her asking about my daughter
At the Spalding.
request of one of her family members who reached out to see if I would like to come visit.
And you traveled to Massachusetts and visited Lindsay at the Spalding Rehab Center, is that right?
Yes.
And what did you do there with Lindsay that time?
We made small talk. We played Uno. It was a pretty basic visit.
When you say you made small talk, what did she talk about?
I remember her asking about my daughter. I remember her asking about any updates to life events for our friends. We talked about some hobbies that she was doing while at Spalding and then played a game.
Do you remember what hobbies she was doing at Spalding?
I can't recall specifically now.
At any point in time, did she mention the death of her children?
No.
At any point in time, did she break down in tears and cry about her children?
No.
What was her affect during that meeting?
I don't remember exactly. Pretty neutral, I would say.
Did she attempt at any point to harm herself?
No.
Did she ask you for help in harming herself?
No.
Did she talk about Cora Dawson or Callan at all?
No.
And that this is them trying to combat a little bit what the defense said, where she still doesn't want to live today. And they're like, oh, look, she didn't say that to her friend who came and visited her.
And nothing further, thank you.
So here's one of the issues, okay, too. I am not completely out on a guilty verdict. Just, I know it maybe kind of sounds like I do because I am getting a little bit annoyed and frustrated with the prosecutor. And the way that they're trying this case, I think, is just horrible. Because I still think that there's a world in which she could be legally guilty, depending on what the experts say. Some people may disagree with me. I'm definitely on the not guilty side right now because the prosecutors have fallen woefully short of disproving that she had a mental disease or defect and everything you need with that insanity defense. But they have just made this, to me, so much worse of a case than what it could have been if the evidence would have been presented a different way. Good night. We have so much about this at the end. PETA, your chat is so much more calm, respectful than so many others. The chat, you know, I am proud of y'all. You should be as well. And PETA, thanks for giving us the platform and being the best teacher ever. Natural leader. Thank you, Amber. I really appreciate it. And I love interacting with the chat. That's what makes this fun. I think that's what makes this different and educational for me and for you. So I'll never stop doing that. And so I hope it's always calm and educational and good in the chat. Chris K is here late again. This case, to me, is a clear example of why Illinois, after Gracie, introduced the guilty but mentally ill plea. You avoid the death penalty, but you go to prison and get treatment. Not sure if this works. So every jurisdiction is a little bit different in how they handle it. And, you know, in Massachusetts, the prosecutors disagree that she was mentally ill and should not. The guilty by mentally ill, I don't think is something they can do in Massachusetts. I think it has to be either guilty and she intended to do it or not guilty by reason of insanity. So every jurisdiction is a little bit different. Chris K. Hi Azam, Azam is the chat OG. Can't disagree with that. Therapist you know, thank you for gifting a Lawyer You Know membership. And the real me here, thank you for gifting 10 Lawyer You Know memberships. All right, so the cross-examination with this witness. We're going to jump ahead a little bit to hear what the defense wanted to point out with this witness and why Lindsay Clancy maybe did not bring up her children when this witness came to visit.
Up till Callan.
Yes.
And did you ever observe anything out of the ordinary, or did she appear to be a loving person and taking care of her kids?
I never saw anything out of the ordinary.
District Attorney asked you about the visit that you had when you were good enough to visit with her at Spalding Rehab. And this was when, in March of 23?
Yes.
And arrangements had to be made for you to visit with her. You had to get approval, and whether you know or not, I mean, I had to kind of help you out a little bit trying to get through the red tape to get in there to see her, along with her family approval and that type of thing, right?
I don't recall any of that.
But you were able to get in
Yes.
to visit with her. And this would have been in the beginning of March, if you know, the middle of March, the end?
I don't recall the exact
Okay.
time.
Was she able to walk around and ambulate, or was she in a wheelchair, or what was her condition? Was she in bed?
She was in a wheelchair. She was sitting up the entire visit.
Did you ask her about why she was in the wheelchair and anything like that?
No.
You knew that she had been in the hospital from January 24th, right?
Yes.
And you knew that your friend had been charged by the police and had killed her 3 beautiful children, right?
Yes.
That was a bit of an awkward, uncomfortable topic, wasn't it?
I think it would be for anybody, yes.
Absolutely. And the district attorney asked you whether or not she cried and whether or not she told you about her children and anything to do with her children or that incident. You both basically stayed away from that entire subject, right?
I remember also being told not to bring that up specifically, which at the time I would,
Oh, so somebody specifically told her not to bring it up. I think that's pretty interesting.
figured that that could be due to the recommendation of mental health providers, et cetera, who were treating her.
Right, and who told you that?
Her sister.
Now, how long did you visit with her?
It was brief, maybe 30 to 45 minutes.
Additionally, at the end of this conversation, they did discuss in January of 2023 that Lindsay Clancy had a conversation about having dark thoughts with her, which I found to be very interesting as well. All right, next we get Christopher Clancy, Patrick Clancy's dad. And here is what he testified to. Lindsay Clancy was a good mom, good to Callan, very protective. They came over to say hi. Her demeanor was good. At Thanksgiving, she was a little quiet. She would get frustrated by Dawson one time when they were trying to have dinner, I think it was at Thanksgiving, and he helped her settle him down and get him sat down just because he was a rambunctious boy, because he was a boy. Are they trying to say she was abusive? Why would they ask that question? Because the defense later is going to say to the judge, I'm going to make sure they know every single bruise and spot on those bodies had nothing to do with Lindsay Clancy prior to this day. There were no accusations that she ever did anything like this to her kids because, you know, the prosecution is some breadcrumbs. They had breakfast Christmas morning. Lindsay looked beautiful in a nice dress. Kids were well behaved. She was happy they went to mass together. They offered to take the kids overnight, and the offer was declined. So they knew they were struggling. They had come and visited them, and they offered to take the kids overnight, generally, I think, and that was denied. So that's really sad to think about, obviously, when you think about Patrick's parents. And did you get a call on January 24th from Patrick? Yes. How was that call? It was terrible. You think? And the defense gets up, and he says, Lindsay was a great mom, right? She talked to you about the struggles, the lack of sleep, not feeling well. Patrick and her had a good relationship. Patrick confided in his dad. He was concerned about his wife. And then he finishes with, I'm sorry, sir. which I don't know if we've heard the prosecutor say that to anybody throughout this trial. I'm sorry for your loss. I'm sorry what you're going through. Family members, friends of Lindsay Clancy, of the Clancy children, of Patrick Clancy. No real apologies or condolences, which I think is, if I was the defense attorney, I would do more of that just to highlight the fact that the prosecutors are not doing that. They're choosing not to do that. Then we got Kyle Carney, who works in finance. I don't know why that matters. Friends with them, demeanor didn't change. But a couple of these witnesses, they kind of had to impeach their own witnesses where they were like, well, she was a little quiet. And they're like, well, you said she was fine. On page 12, line 10, you said she was fine at that dinner. You said she was fine at that party. And they don't want anybody to say she was a little quiet or something was a little off, nothing like that. And I'm wondering if the public perception of this is affecting maybe some of the way people are testifying. I don't know. They're not supposed to be watching, obviously. But if they're getting a vibe at all of how the public feels bad for Lindsay Clancy, or should you have seen something, I don't know. Then we get to another state police officer who interviewed people, got the CVS video, and a conversation about Dawson from May of 2021. I'm going to give you that context before the prosecutors do, because this is something the defense highlighted as when that actually happened. But let's listen to a little bit of this. This is in a Facebook group, something that Lindsay Clancy typed.
Sergeant Cacchio, just showing you what's now been marked as Exhibit 217 on the screen. Is that a Facebook post from the Attachment Parenting for Little's Facebook group?
Yes.
And through the information you received from the search warrant return, you were able to locate the content of this post in the records for the Attachment Parenting for Littles and confirm that it also appeared to be authored by Lindsay Marie Clancy, correct?
Correct.
Or by the Facebook page of Lindsay Marie Clancy?
Yes.
And fair to say it reads, hello, lovely parents. I'm looking for some advice, solidarity, ideas, something, anything. I'm truly finding my 19-month-old to be the most difficult human I've ever encountered. I mean that with all love in my heart, but I honestly cannot make it through a day without getting so frustrated with him. He's not my first child, so not to compare, because I know that every child is different, but just for background, this isn't my first rodeo. Every single thing with him is a battle, and it has been this way for a while, since he was maybe 8 months old. I really try to pick my battles and only do what's completely necessary, but I mean everything. Getting out of his crib in the morning and going downstairs, changing his diaper, getting him dressed, getting him in his seat to eat, getting him in the car seat, getting him out of the car seat, putting on his jacket and shoes to go outside, having him come inside when it's time, going to sleep for his nap, and at night, he fights me every step of the way with all these normal daily activities. It constantly feels like I have to force him to do these things, which feels so wrong, but he is always fighting me and crying about doing these very normal things. You recall seeing that message in the records?
I do.
And
What do you guys think the purpose of that was? Why read that message typed in 2021, 2 years prior to her killing her kids? What was the purpose of writing that? What is the breadcrumb that they're trying to drop for the jury to think? The only thing I can think of is she hated her kids. She hated Dawson. He would never listen. So she wanted to take his life because she hated him. That's all I can think of. I don't know what other probative value that has. And you better believe I've said crap like that about my kids. Maybe not to a Facebook group, but to my wife. Like, they were psychotic tonight. Why did they literally are screaming at each other at dinner, especially when they're in the 5 and 2 range. My kids are 3 years apart. They were literally slapping each other. He did a spitball in the through the straw, hit her right in the face. And so she threw her breadstick at him. Like, and I'm telling my wife, like, these kids are animals. Like, maybe other parents haven't said that, but I certainly have said crap like that about my kids. So what is she trying to prove? And that's the point. It's like they're doing all of this. I'm saying it, but I'm not saying it. And I don't like that. And I think when you do that, if you have a lawyer on the other side saying, here is what they're saying, that she hated him because he wouldn't sit down in his chair for dinner. That's why she did this. That's what they're saying. That's her motive. To me, that's a swing and a miss. A complete swing and a miss. All right. I'm going to answer some questions before we get to, we're at the hour mark. I thought I'd be done in an hour easily tonight. So hit that like button. We got a little bit of overtime. Also, I'm going to be on NBC 10 Boston tonight at 7 o'clock. If anybody wants to check that out. I know we got some Boston people in here. But I'm going to answer your questions. Then we're going to get to the arguments at the end of the day before we go. So we're going to do a little bit of overtime. If you guys are okay with that, hit the like button. I'm struggling to understand what the Commonwealth case is. What is the motive? Well, you just heard part of it. I might be missing something, so what is it? What am I missing in the state's case? Thank you, Peter. Love the channel as well. She hated the life she had. She was annoyed at Dawson because he was disobedient, and that's why she did it. That's the motive. That's what I'm hearing as the motive. Take this for what it's worth. But PP mental effects and symptoms manifest sometimes weeks and months later. As nurses, we educate moms in the hospital about the feelings, but aren't just baby blues, but survival mode is real. And I think we're going to hear that from defense experts. I'm a therapist and my clients are often hesitant to bring it up to me. I mean, think about that. People want help but fear judgment. I don't know why people think she'd tell all her friends. I agree with you. Her not wanting to go back to work is reasonable. I can't imagine trying to assess patients while dealing with brain fog, and she could have lost her license. And also, like anxiety separating herself from her kids. She said to Patrick it was not natural. Feel that way and don't know they're going to feel that way till they get there. Hi, Peter in the chat. You know, I'll be attending tomorrow's session for the second time this week. Want me to focus on a particular subject? Any questions for me? P.S. The courtroom benches are hard as a rock. Yes, a lot of them are. I heard that we're going to get some of the treating psychiatric doctors and nurses that I think are being sued by Patrick Clancy. I think some of them are testifying tomorrow. So I'm really interested in how the jury responds to and feels about them. How far away was Lindsay Clancy from the house found? And do you think the judge will allow Red's experts in? So I guess we can use this as a transition to the arguments. So the defense wants to call a few witnesses. Prosecutors are objecting. The defense makes arguments that I'm by myself, I'm a sole practitioner, they've got 1 million people working for them, this isn't fair, I need to be able to have these experts. Judges sometimes don't have mercy on defense attorneys that do that because you choose what cases you're going to take as private defense attorneys. And you shouldn't take it if you can't handle it. He's like, I had 4 trials that were very serious, including a couple back-to-back federal trials right before this case, but he made the perfect argument. And this is a good defense attorney. He doesn't care. He doesn't think anybody's going to say he dropped the ball or he's a bad defense attorney. He's like, Judge, if you don't let these witnesses in, that's my fault. That's per se ineffective assistance of counsel. So if we go lose, this is going to get appealed and we're going to be doing this again. And then everybody was sending me the Massachusetts Supreme Court overturned a verdict, it overturned a guilty verdict, vacated the verdict and sent it back for another trial for a very similar issue dealing with experts not allowing to be in the case, abuse of discretion by the judge. I didn't read the entire opinion. Carol Erskine just sent it to me, Judge Carol. And guess who the judge was? This guy on the screen right here. So he already got overturned for not allowing defense experts in, which is interesting because I put in my notes, in the interest of justice, you have to let these experts in. Now, will he let them testify to everything the defense wants them to testify to? I don't think so. And he already quibbled a little bit about he can't say this was an attempted, self-harm, but he can say it was severe cuts. The defense is like, fine, that's fine. Dr. La Posada wants to testify to the fractured spine and how she didn't Spider-Man down, but instead she jumped off. And we're going to listen to a little bit of that exchange, but let's listen to the exchange and then I'll answer some of the questions from early on about this.
The Commonwealth
be an issue until a week before trial. And again, this letter is dated July 26th, and it doesn't tell us which records, which reports, or what medical journals or training or anything that these opinions are based on.
Well, that can be done by voir dire. I mean, the Commonwealth has at least inferred through their case that this was not a serious suicide attempt.
Even the judge is picking it up. It's very clear that's what the Commonwealth wants the jury to think. And even if they didn't, here's the great Jedi mind trick of the defense attorney here. He said it out loud. He's not going to let them quietly infer it and let certain jurors think it and other ones not. And it won't bother the jurors that aren't picking it up, but the jurors that like it, they'll latch onto it. Lawyers try to do that. You don't want to piss off all the jurors, but if you can get the good ones, good. He wants to piss off the jurors that it's going to piss off. And he has made it so obvious that they're trying to do this that the judge has even picked up on it. And he even is saying, come on, guys, we all know what you're doing here.
Right? I mean, and there's questions about whether or not someone's hanging outside the window or not. And so why wasn't this an issue that the Commonwealth could have anticipated would come up?
The position of the
Duh. If you're going to make an argument, you can expect the defense to respond.
Commonwealth wasn't a serious suicide attempt. It's that the methods that were chosen were insufficient to achieve the goal.
The methods that were chosen were insufficient to achieve the goal. So she just wanted to paralyze herself, not end her life. Now, I know this with their expert. Somebody made a comment about it earlier, but they don't want to fully say it. There's a lot of things they don't want to fully do. Like, did she hate her kids or not? Did she hate her life or not? Did she not want to work or not? And was this a fake attempt at self-harm or not?
For that, we would argue in our closing. I don't think we have to disclose that theory at this point, but we've never said it wasn't a serious suicide attempt. We've never said it was a fake suicide attempt. What we've endeavored to develop from the testimony is that the methods that were chosen were methods that would be unsuccessful, but we're not saying it wasn't a serious attempt. And I think the reasons for that will become clearer when the doctors give their testimony. But it's our position that she was attempting to kill herself that night. There are various reasons and factors where she was unsuccessful in killing herself, but successful in killing her children.
And I can kind of see that theory, right? If I'm trying to, see it the way that they're putting it down, is that she was able to successfully do it to them, but not herself. Is that intent?
But there's been all kinds of testimony regarding, it seems to be a dispute of whether or not she's hanging from the windowsill or goes out head first. There's some testimony that's been raised, even with the blood experts, things that she may have been hanging from the windowsill. Dr. Lapasato, it seems what they're seeking to do is those injuries are consistent with somebody who lands on their head.
So would the court allow us to call a witness who's not on our witness list to rebut that evidence?
Yeah, I would consider that. Sure.
I would have no problem
Yeah.
with
The defense is like, sure, go ahead. So I think the judge is going to let the vast majority of that testimony in from the experts from the defense. I really do. I think that we're going to get most of what the defense wants in the interest of justice, and I think that's the right call. I think that's what the judge should do. Can we please discuss how the Commonwealth said the fake S isn't a theory? Even the judge was blown away. Yeah, the judge ain't buying it. We're all listening to the same thing. The Commonwealth lost me in the afternoon, arguing they have an implied fake S, so disingenuous. The fear of rebuttal witnesses also shows lack of confidence in the prosecution. Yeah, like let the defense present their case. What are we doing? What are we talking about? And all because of a timeliness issue, not a relevance objection. Like if they were going to testify to something that had nothing to do with the case, fine. But all because of the timeliness, really, we're going to do that? They can't prepare? Come on, get out of here. Did you hear the Massachusetts Supreme Court overruled this judge today on a previous case where he disallowed mental health record evidence in a similar postpartum case? Judge Erskine covered it. Yes, she sent it to me as well. She emailed it to me. So that's how I saw it. Despite what the defense says, the Commonwealth did not mention fake S in opening and instead said failed attempt. Longtime LYK rewatch fan, first live today or yesterday, absolutely agree with you that they did not outright say it, but they have absolutely inferred it. You know who did say it and who has said it over and over again is the defense, because he wants everybody in the courtroom to either think or know that's what the Commonwealth's trying to do, and it's a bogus theory, which I think is a good way to combat it. This trial And this trial judge and DA just had a case overturned by the Supreme Judicial Court in a similar case. A mother with past mental health issues killed her 2 children. That's wild timing, right? I wonder if they were paying attention to this. I think the blinking eyes by Elsie is just her being heavily medicated. Somebody else told me that as well. And trying to process it all. Just my opinion, though. And FYI, I'm IT/not a doctor, but I also take meds as directed. A judge just had a scathing reversal on a mental illness case that came out today. Wouldn't allow certain evidence of mental health. I've got to read that order. Almost 9,000 people watching. Hit that like button. Yeah, we got over 10,000 people in here. Everybody hit the like button. Let's get to 10,000 likes before we're done. I still have some questions to answer. So get to 10,000 likes before we're done. Oh, as we are going to go through these final questions here, let me put this up first. Thank you to Nurse of Interest. 10 Lawyer You Know memberships. You hit that like button, you got a better chance of getting a membership. And that's a joke, by the way. Here's the question that I want to ask everybody. It's not legally possible, but if we could wave our magic wand as czar of the law and say that if you could vote that Lindsay Clancy would be sentenced to a mental health facility for 25 years to life, that she would not have the opportunity to get out until 25 years from now, would you say yes to that? Because I think a large percentage of the world would be okay with that. Now, there have been definitions and arguments that that's cruel and unusual punishment, that because somebody has a mental disease or defect, that's punishment to keep them in a mental health facility for 25 years. What if they're better and they should be let out? And if they're not legally culpable and they didn't understand what they were doing and they couldn't form a criminal intent, they shouldn't be punished like a criminal. So I understand the arguments on both sides. I'm just trying to think, where is the line? Because I don't think everybody would be cool with life, but 25 to life. So I think she'd be in her 60s with her first chance to get out. Doesn't mean she would automatically get out. But I think there is a fear for people when they hear that she could get out in a year, 2 years, whenever the mental health experts and a judge agree that she is able to get out and she crosses all the hurdles that she needs to. I think that causes a lot of people some pause, and I don't blame them. I get it. Kay, Red added to my top 10 favorite lawyers to watch. Who agrees with that? Let me know in the chat if you guys agree that he's now top 10 of everyone we've watched. Psychologist, people want her to go to jail because they believe that is justice. Is that justice? I don't think so. She is more of a danger to herself. And this is just a great, there's so many smart, educated people with different backgrounds and specialties in here to discuss this. And I like to be checked and challenged on this stuff too, because this is a tough call. Comparisons to Lori Vallow are offensive. Imagine experiencing PPD right now and hearing that. The ADA is causing enough damage. We don't need to add to it. Listen, if people are going to compare it, I feel the pull to give my comparison, and I see them very differently. If I'm on the jury, I am absolutely livid at the prosecution for dragging in this kind and gentle man. I feel like they are torturing his family. Oh yeah, I don't even know if I mentioned that. Why did they call the Clancy grandfather? Why in the world would you call him? They didn't even get a ton of sympathy out of his testimony. It was a complete waste. He added nothing. It was probably miserable for him. This is day 8 of trial. And I think we missed a day or half a day. So he's been sitting here in multiple days of jury selection. He's been sitting here probably sweating and miserable, dreading this day that he had to come testify for 10 minutes. Brutal. This is a stupid trial and charges. State mental hospitals in Massachusetts are worse than the prisons. Horrendous conditions, staff, resources, and funding. She isn't headed to Club Fed either. Verdict. Yeah, I don't think anybody, I hope nobody's confused that's going to be like some walk in the park and amazing, but it's definitely different. Hi all, I'm happy to run back the Lawyer You Know Leftovers Fantasy Football League this year for those who didn't get into Peter's Champions League. Reply to my comment under P's community post from today if you want to play. Yes, leagues are filling up all around. Red melted my heart today. I want to thank Camber Rewatch crew for introducing me to Lawyer You Know, who introduced you. Drop a line, hit the thumbs up, share, invite your friends, the more you know. Hey, that's awesome, Amber. I love comments like that. And yes, thank you to the Camber Rewatch crew. And yeah, let me know in the comments where you guys first heard about the lawyer you know. When the ADA said that letting these witnesses in would be redundant, my jaw dropped. After all the EMTs and the doctors and the cops and everybody, it's like, that's rich. PETA will be on TV Watch tonight. Side note, Reddington is surgical at making the state witnesses, defense witnesses, masterclass. I think he's got a lot to work with in this case. It can be dangerous to try and do that, but he's crushing it. I think Lindsay Clancy rushed, so her unaliving attempts were not thorough. That's possible too. She didn't send him an hour away, right? So people who jump off a bridge and survive didn't mean it because their method wasn't sufficient. It's not a bad argument. Can't argue with that. But she was successful. She coded, and only because there wasn't a DNR, modern medicine resuscitated her. However, her attempt did stop the heart. I mean, if you were in the jury room and you said something like that, listen, I don't think it's hard to argue like she was successful in seriously hurting herself and definitely could have died. No, she should have life. DP meaning death penalty, maybe? Okay. Defense theories can play with might have beens. The Commonwealth theory should not. And yet we see too many times they play that game. I had my last baby in Boston 9 days after this year. Postpartum vigilance from doctors, including pediatrician, was spectacular. Sad it took this. Yeah, and that's, I guess, somebody else commented about their pediatrician too. Just like lawyers, right? You can have good ones and bad ones, doctors too, and it can really make a huge difference. Cheerful off topic, perfect timing because this is the last comment. Touring FSU Law tomorrow, any insights I should look for? So the quad where you have the old appellate court, you should walk through, tour those courtrooms. That's where I practice my moot court and mock trial arguments. Beautiful state-of-the-art courtrooms that make it as real as could ever be. Amazing law school. The building's kind of older, but it's nostalgic. Some of the greatest professors in the world, the greatest football team you could ever cheer for. I absolutely loved it. I can't say better things about Florida State. And you might run into me on campus one day, giving a guest lecture or just hanging out around there, going to a football or basketball game. So that's another perk if you go to FSU Law School. All right. That's all we got. A little bit longer today, so sorry about that. Hit the like button if you did like it. Really quick, should I have gotten a reply to my 725 football email? I know we're sending out the invites today if you were on that list. Or today or tomorrow, we're going to send out the invites to the fantasy football leagues. Kilkenny, Ireland here. I am a mental health first aid instructor. I love PETA for a long time, but disagree. The states have the best, disagree that the states have the best justice system. She would not be charged here. She would be held for a long time. Understood? Understood you feel that way. I get it. I get it. Hey, Peter, keep an eye out for an email from me. I have a lot I wanted to say to you about this, but I put it all in an essay today. A ton of people have been sending me some really interesting personal stories, which I appreciate, and I read every one of them that are about this case, and it goes in the bank and applies to my analysis of it. So I appreciate you guys so much. That's all I got. Till next time, I'm out of here. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who may be interested here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe.
You can also follow us on Instagram, X, Facebook, and TikTok. And don't forget to check out the Lawyer You Know podcast featuring new episodes every week. And if you have a case that you want to personally talk to us about in your life, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, truck accident, or slip and fall case, please email us at lawyeryouknow@gmail.com.
And of course, all these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, The Lawyer You Know.